If you're paying attention at all, chances are you've either read about it, heard about it, or maybe even have a kid in one of your kids' classrooms who's struggling with their gender. Now, I know this is all new to so many of us, but they're saying that in the last 5 years, the amount of transgender teens across the world has nearly doubled. I think this is a very important conversation to have. I hope you'll invest the time and I hope you'll learn a thing or two. The Nikki Alpert podcast is brought to you by the Empowered Cookie. These cookies are soft-baked, they're moist and they're chewy, and they're packed with gourmet, gluten-free and paleo, low-carb, high-fuel nutrition. Get empowered by making the clean, lean, healthy choice of the delicious Empowered Cookie. Go to empoweredcookie.com and use my code Nikki25 for 25% off your purchase. I promise you'll thank me.
Hey baby, it's time for the Nikki Alpert Podcast. Come on, pull up a chair. We gonna have some fun.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Nikki Alpert Podcast. Today I'm talking about a pretty controversial subject, and it's amazing that we don't know more about it. You know, so many of us go through life not asking people questions about themselves, which is why I do this, because I think conversations are so important. And today, I think this one is really important. The subject is what's happening with our transgender youth and what has really started to happen over the last 2 years. And my guest today is Dr. Erica Anderson. Erica, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, Nikki.
I am so thrilled. And we've been talking for months. And the reason I called Erica is because she's an esteemed authority on the psychological well-being of people going through their gender journey. And she's been a clinical psychologist for 44 years. And Dr. Erica Anderson is a transgender woman. So there's nobody better to talk to about this than you, Dr. Erica. And I'm so grateful that you agreed to talk to me.
I'm really happy to be here.
So let's just start with how you became a specialist in transgender healthcare.
It's not a complicated story. I was very interested in gender and sexuality for a long, long time. And as I started to come to terms with my own identity, I started to do research. And ultimately that meant that I was doing things like taking continuing education courses on gender and sexuality. And then as I got more certain about my own identity, I realized, okay, I'm going to transition. And if I practice, probably I'll do something with transgender people. And that's exactly what happened. And then I got a little more serious about it. And I was invited to work at the Child and Adolescent Gender Center at University of California, San Francisco, which by that point had become one of the world's leading places for this work. I did that for a number of years, and I'm doing private practice and consulting because, as you and the people watching this, I'm sure understand, not only did the general public not know much about this, but most health professionals were never exposed to issues regarding transgender identity, had any experience or training with transgender healthcare. So this is kind of what I've been doing. Of course, I lecture places. I get invited to talk to people, and I've been doing some writing. And
that's how I found you.
Yeah. So that's how a lot of people find me these days, is they read something that I've written or see an interview like this that I've done, and they want more. They want to talk more.
So let's just jump right into that. One of your most recent articles was that you wrote for the Daily Mail.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about what's happened in the last 2 years since we were locked at home and young kids who were struggling with all sorts of things. Talk to me about that article and tell everybody the basis of it and where you stand on what's happening.
Well, thanks. There's no shortage of opportunity to be misunderstood in this area. People have a lot of preconceived notions. Some people have very little understanding. Some people have stereotypes. So I felt strongly about speaking up and writing.
Mhm.
And the Daily Mail approached me. One of the senior people there had seen some of the other things that I'd written, and they said, we'd like you to do an op-ed piece for us. And what I did was I sort of laid out the context in which we find ourselves. And among the factors are that, of course, society, at least in progressive areas like California, has become more accepting of sexual and gender minorities, LGBTQIA plus people. And so with each succeeding generation, there's been more exposure to those who have these identities. And whereas in previous generations, people who were gay or people who were trans certainly were often closeted. They didn't want anybody to know who they were. They were afraid of being rejected or being subject to discrimination. So society has become more accepting. So we kind of all know that. As such, there's more conversation in every quarter of society, including among children and people in schools. So I pointed out that identity formation, exploration of identity is a normal part of being a teenager. And certainly in today's era, we know kids are accelerating their use of social media and the internet. And so what has happened is a lot of kids who are gender questioning or transgender have found that this is a way that they can talk about themselves, share their story, which I'm sure is a core objective many have, to help other people.
Right.
And there are a lot of these influencers who are preaching all kinds of stuff. Some of it maybe is harmless, but some of it is dispensing medical advice. Like they're telling kids, if you feel uncomfortable in your body, maybe because you're in the wrong body, maybe you're trans. Now, Nikki, let's get real here. How many teenagers are uncomfortable, at least for a period, in their body as it changes?
I'm 56, and it's changing. I'm pretty uncomfortable in it.
Exactly.
So it happens to all of us, and it's not just in your teens, for sure.
Exactly. So, and if you're perhaps a little more suggestible or susceptible to the influence of other people, maybe this is a rabbit hole you end up going down. And when I'm interviewing kids who are brought to me by parents concerned about these things, I usually am asking about, well, do you go on social media? Which social media do you follow anybody on social media? And then and often they will tell me, oh yeah, I follow this trans guy, blah blah blah, and he's really cool. I've really been following him, and it's like we have to ask ourselves, what is the impact of this? At the same time, as these things going on with teenagers who are now in increasing proportions exploring or considering a sexual or gender minority label. There's ample research on this, as you know. With each succeedingly younger generation, a higher proportion of kids are saying that they're gay, lesbian, trans, whatever.
Right.
It's as high in some of these surveys as 18-20%. So 1 out of 5 kids in the survey will admit that this is going on.
So clearly there's more of them that haven't taken the survey as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also kids who are maybe very early in this exploration and don't really want to declare anything
about it,
but are thinking about it.
Right.
Okay. So I have parents tell me all the time. I had a mother this week, happens to be a Los Angeles family. Mother said 80% of the teenage girls in her circle, in other words, friends of friends and so on, family, you know what I mean by circle. 80% of these girls are saying that their gender is different than their sex assigned at birth. 80%.
I'm shaking my head, and not because I think it's a bad thing. I mean, like if it is, it is, and that's we are who we are. But the shaking of my head is just, that's a lot. And could it really be that many?
Right.
And again, like you said earlier, we're most curious about our identity, whether it's sexual or whether we fit into the band or the theater or the athletic group at that young age, and influential, and also trying to be cool and fitting in.
Right. And trying to fit in is a motivation shared by many, many teenagers.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah. So it's serious business. So I don't want to make light of it, but 80%, like, as recently as 5 years ago, we thought, oh, maybe 1% of people are transgender.
Right.
And now to hear that it's 7-8 times that is what is revealed in these surveys. Another compelling question, not only is a compelling question, why is this happening, but is this going to continue? In other words, are all of these kids going to find out that they really don't feel that they're transgender, and so maybe for a period of time they toy with it. They may even go through what we call a social transition, and to the rest of the world, position themselves and their persona as trans, a different gender, or non-binary,
right? Which
is also something that's fairly new. That was not, a thing 10 years ago. So,
but I mean, it was a thing. It just wasn't a thing that was so big. There are people who have felt these ways, and as you said earlier, closeted for years or shameful about it. But as a transgender woman who specializes in the well-being of people on their gender journey, the idea that you think that something might not really be exactly as it's presenting is so interesting. And the fact that you speak out about it opens you up to a whole lot of criticism.
Right. So I think one of the things that's happened is, in the zeal of many health providers to help trans children, children and adolescents and young people, all ages.
Right.
They've forgotten that there's a larger pool of people who are gender questioning or suffer from gender incongruence than are transgender, who might have gender dysphoria. So I've been writing about and speaking about the critical importance of an individualized evaluation of every young person, because, a set of parents might say, well, our kid is, talking about gender and they are asserting a gender and using these labels, and we don't really know what that means. They may not appreciate that gender questioning may be a normative experience for many people. It's not fun, maybe, but like, as we were saying earlier about, going through puberty, how many young teenagers going through puberty feel uncomfortable in their body?
Sure.
So feeling uncomfortable in your body, what's the difference between that and feeling like you might be a different gender?
Huge.
It's huge, but not always apparent to everybody.
Sure. Well, especially when you're 10 or 12. When you're 10 or
12. And also, if you've gone online and somebody has told you, well, if you're uncomfortable with your body, maybe you're in the wrong body. That's a meme, that all trans people are uncomfortable in their bodies.
Right.
And that's the reason why they're trans. It's a part of the picture, but it's not necessarily the whole picture.
But many of the therapists who are first called because of affirmative care are saying, if your kid says they're trans, they're trans. And if are they too young to know? Nope, they say they're trans. That's what they are. And that's what affirmative care is. And if you don't, what's worse, having a girl who used to be a boy or having a dead boy?
Right.
And that's not the only two choices.
No, exactly. It's a false binary.
Yeah.
And in addition to the implication of your comments, that may not be the only thing that's going on with a child. In fact, increasingly, it's not the only thing going on with children. In fact, the surveys now of the general mental health of young people in the last couple of years is that we have a significant rise in mental health problems in this.
We knew that was going to happen. It was one of the first things people said was going to happen as soon as the pandemic started.
Exactly. So a huge proportion of kids who are talking about gender also have other things going on, and we don't really know what is true about a child. And I take great exception to the people who distill the affirmative care approach down to just believe children. And if they tell you, that's what they are, that's what they are. Well, kids say all kinds of things. I mean, kids might think they have certain diseases. Well, do we just say, oh, okay, so you're going to get that treatment? No, we
take them to a doctor, and the doctor assesses the situation.
Exactly. The hallmark of modern medicine and psychology is individualized evaluation. We go through a process, and there is 100 years of research on self-report in psychology, which shows it's not reliable. No, we don't do self-diagnosis for everything else. So why this? Some who are seeing gender questioning kids are eager to support them in their identity, their expressed or now affirmed gender, and then they say, well, the next step is medical support, including perhaps cross-sex hormones or puberty blockers if you're younger, and I'm going to say premature medicalization is unfortunate, because we now know that there are people who report to us that they feel that they were rushed onto medicines and even surgeries. And I've met a number of such patients. They were not my patients, but I've met them, and they say such an evaluation was not done. Right. And they weren't given a chance to process what was going on with them in a complete way. And they seized upon this route as an answer to their distress. And it looked so attractive, and others on screen told them about their success, and sort of made in effect a promise that, if you do this, your life is going to be better. And some are sorely disappointed that their life isn't better the way they turned out. Another element, if I might, Nikki, with the Daily Mail article, was I pointed out we have not fully come to terms with the fact that some people who are gender questioning young turn out to be gay or lesbian. And
that's quite different.
It's quite different. The people who have had the most experience with this work in the Netherlands and in Canada pointed this out to us.
Right.
And so we know that a gender identity in childhood cannot be presumed to persist. In the last month, October 2022, the United Kingdom released yet another updated report on its self-study and investigation of care for gender questioning youth. And I've been following this, and in there, they say very clearly that many kids are gender questioning more than ever before, and that whereas our clinics have been inundated with these kids, we think a different approach is indicated. For the kids with gender incongruence, maybe a consultation with the experts, people like me, is indicated, but the providers in the local area, the physicians and psychologists, can support them, can provide mental health support. And it may be that the primary thing going on with them is other mental health issues. And it may be that they will not persist in this asserted identity. And so they are doing what I've been preaching, frankly, for a couple of years, which is let's not too
rush into anything.
Rush into anything. I'm the voice of caution. Some say reason. Some even say I'm a whistleblower.
Some say gatekeeping.
Some say gatekeeping.
Or conversion therapy they accuse you of.
Right, exactly. I have no vested interest in somebody being trans or not being trans. Right. I've been very clear about that in my own mind and in how I work with other people in writing. So if you're trans, great, I can help you.
Right.
If you need to figure out if you're trans, I can help you.
Great, I can help you.
I can help you. If you're not sure you're trans, I can help you.
Right.
And let's do what's right for you.
So let's talk about the idea that, number one, it is a rare therapist who practices affirmative care that says what you say. It shocks me to think that anybody doesn't just think that you're right. She must be right. Look who we're talking to.
Mhm.
How
Well-
can you not agree with her?
Well, the people who think about it, as you just point out, have to concede that, well, she must have some basis for saying what she says. She's not stupid, and she's not doing it for effect. She has nothing to gain by putting herself out there and being criticized like this.
That's right.
The only thing I'm interested in really ultimately is people being true to themselves and being supported for being authentic. So you want to mince words with me about, what I say? Walk in my moccasins.
shoes. Exactly.
Walk in my moccasins and then tell me how wrong I am.
Yeah. As a woman who specializes in this and is on the fence about, let's just find out exactly where you lie in this. I can help you wherever you are. How do you know? And how long should you invest? Because here's the thing.
Mhm.
I know some children. They went to a doctor. They told the doctor that they felt this way. The doctor said, well, then you are. And to their parents, then they are. Right. And maybe it was a couple of months of let's talk about this and then straight to cross hormones.
I'll tell you, in some cases, it's pretty quick. It can be a few weeks. That's unusual. Mm-hmm. And that would be in those cases where
unusual in your practice.
Thank you. In my experience, in that a pure gender issue, incongruence, dysphoria, absent any other factors and indication that this has been going on a long time, probably years. Mm-hmm. That's the exceptional case, not the typical case. Mm-hmm. The typical case has other things going on. And with a lot of teenagers that I'm consulted on, there was no gender questioning until the last couple of years.
Which we're calling rapid onset gender dysphoria, right?
Correct. Yeah. My colleague, Dr. Lisa Littman, has coined that term, which is still not, she would agree, a diagnostic term, but it's observing a phenomenon, which is a new group of trans-identifying or trans-asserting kids, almost all teenagers, mm-hmm. Post-puberty or at puberty, in the absence of any indication when they were younger. Now, the European health authorities, including the one I invoked earlier today, and Sweden, Finland, France, and Australia and New Zealand are seeing the same thing that we're seeing in the United States, which is an upsurge in numbers presenting to gender clinics. There are more gender clinics now. And
they're all overwhelmed.
And they're all overwhelmed. And a recent article published by Reuters, in which I was quoted, pulled the healthcare data and showed that the numbers in the last 5 years, the upswing is unbelievable, almost doubling every year.
Yeah.
Okay.
We should all be trans by 2050.
Exactly. Exactly. Bill Maher said that on one of his shows.
That's probably where I got it. I'm not that funny, really.
Yeah. He said eventually we're all going to be gay or trans.
That's just what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sorry.
It's funny.
He said some other funny things, but and he actually mentioned me. I don't know if you saw that show, but
I did.
He mentioned me. So because people realize what I say makes so much sense, right. I think. And I'm saying let's take a whole look at it. Let's not just look at this one kid who says they're trans, and then in isolation we say, well, you're trans, here are the hormones. No, what's going on with this kid? What's the best thing for this kid? I want everybody who hears me or reads me to know that I want the best for every child.
Yeah. I'm
not just looking out for trans kids and sort of saying, oh, okay, you're trans, I'll help you, but you're not trans, I'll go away.
Right.
I want to help every kid, and I have a long career. I was trained as a child and adolescent psychologist as well as an adult psychologist decades ago, coming up to half a century ago. I've seen arguably maybe 3 generations of teenagers in my clinical work over these years. And this generation is different.
Yeah.
And everybody knows it objectively. The data are there. They're questioning their gender more than ever. They're actually, I'm afraid, sometimes conflating sexuality and gender, which we try not to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They have, and the data are here. They are postponing life events like dating,
Mm-hmm.
getting a driver's license,
Yep.
okay, etc. All these things. They're taking gap years
Mm-hmm.
more so than ever before,
Mm-hmm.
even if they're going to college. So my concern is they're postponing decisions about other things that are
Things
not
they
as,
should think about, but not this.
exactly my point. This is more consequential than getting your driver's license.
Absolutely, it is.
And if you go so far as taking hormones, and certainly if eventually you have surgeries, these are irreversible events. You changed yourself forever. And if we sweat over applying to college, are any teenagers and parents sweating over college?
All of us did, or are going to.
Okay, I'm making the case that this deserves at least as much attention as a major life event. And the problem is, we're not all on the same page. Some characterize that as gay, as you said earlier. They use the term gatekeeping as though that's a slur.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of evaluating people. I'm proud of feeling conscientious about exploring what's going on with them. I advocate exploratory therapy when kids are not clear, when they are, cycling through different labels. If something so significant as this is the subject of attention by a child and by parents, then don't we all want to work towards a day when everybody agrees, yeah, this is who they are, this is their sincere identity, let's support them.
Yeah.
And the research shows us very clearly those young people who are transgender who do well, mm-hmm. and those receive support from families and loved ones, and those who do poorly typically don't.
Right.
And so that therein enjoined on that issue sometimes is this meme, which I take exception to, of, do you want a child alive and the gender different than sex assigned at birth, or do you want a dead child? Which I think is a terrible disservice. It's a misreading of the research data. Suicide risk is always done individually. Suicidal ideation is always a risk for harm. And I'm a psychologist. I don't want anybody to have those thoughts. No. I don't want anybody to hurt themselves. I'm duty bound to protect everyone that I come in contact with, and I do. Right. But to browbeat or extort parents to go along with some recommendation because you say if you don't do this, your child is gonna commit suicide is almost like malpractice.
I agree.
I've literally had parents tell me they were told that in the room by the therapist. They were in front of their kid. You know, it's as if the therapist or the physician, medical provider is saying, "Look, kid, we're on your side.
Your parents are stupid. We're gonna fix it for you."
Yeah, they're stupid. We're ignoring them because they don't know what's what. And literally some of these videos that I was referring to earlier, the characters in these say that, your parents won't get this, which is why you have to go around them.
Who are these doctors who are telling these kids after one visit, yes, you are, don't listen to your parents, I'm going to put you on puberty blockers, a 10-year-old. Yeah. Let's put you on puberty blockers. And don't question your kid, you're going to kill him if you do. Who are these doctors?
Well, it's a new generation of trans providers, health providers, who were taught by others that, it's really important to affirm the kids that come to them. It's really important to listen to them. And they're told that for the trans kid, that the pathway to medicines is open if they're trans.
Right.
But my point earlier, they're not really thinking about this larger group of gender questioning kids, and the fact that the persistently trans kids are a subset,
Right.
and that their job is to support all the kids. But the jump to the conclusion is my point.
Right.
That okay, kid says X is true.
Let's treat it.
Let's treat it. Just premature. And I've been criticized for some of the language that I've used. There was one interview I did where I said some providers are hasty.
Sloppy is, I think, a word you use too.
Oh, thank you. Sloppy. Actually, you read a lot of what
I know more about what's happening in the transgender world. I would say not more than you, but probably as much as many of the people that you work with. Because and also because you and I have been talking for so long before we actually did this, I've had more time to read up on it. Yeah. And also because I've been looking at it on social media, it's coming up everywhere on my platforms. It is coming up everywhere. Yeah. I'm surprised. Like most people, I get feeds from, and keywords, and transgender is a key. Yeah, your For You pages is what you're getting. I watched Biden recently talking. He invited a very popular TikTok trans woman. Mm-hmm. And he said, I think she asked about the fear that Americans had of transgender and what they think of us and what they've done to us and all that stuff. And he said, we just should face our fears. Because when you sit down with a trans person, mm-hmm. you realize there's nothing to be afraid of. They're just like, this is what I've been fearing. This conversation that you and I had, this could be scary to somebody. Are you kidding me? Or she was actually talking about like trans women are not using women's bathrooms to hurt anybody. They just want their privacy and they want to feel like they can go to the bathroom where they're comfortable. Trans people aren't the people you're supposed to be afraid of, or should, they're not the boogeymen. I just want my full rights as an American citizen. So my question for some years has been, why should I accept a substandard version of my citizenship just because I'm trans? Right. I've been a father, a husband, a family member, an educator, a professional person. I'm 4 times vested in Social Security. I'm a taxpayer citizen. I've never been convicted of a crime. Indeed. Why should I be feel less than? Well, feel less than, but be treated less than. Be treated less than. And I mean, since we're doing a lot of frank talk here, I have been discriminated against, and I've been treated as less than, and I've been treated in the way that I feared I would when I read that section in my textbook, right. That people would assume I was crazy. The ideas that people have, and I guess because of the old books and the old identities that were slapped upon them, and people mm-hmm. who never looked further or read anything like I've done over the last few weeks, you can't be afraid of what you know. No. And when, of course, I'm in friendly circles, people understand what I'm doing and appreciate it. And so, if I can put myself out there, as I'm doing with you, I guess, and talk to people as I do, regularly, then I will feel like when I'm sitting down to rest, I will feel like I have had a life of fulfillment. Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you what your legacy is, and I guess what you'd like your legacy to be. And I think you just answered that question. Yeah, I would like to be remembered as somebody who, at some risk to herself, tried to speak the truth, tried to raise concerns, tried to help people get what they need. And I have a few people I've helped along the way. I trust I'll be able to help a few more, and some of them will be they're younger professionals who will then, at some point sort of carry on and do the good work. I mean, I keep thinking of things to say. One of them was, I think you may have known I was out of town a week ago. I went to New York for a small private conference,
And it was brought together by a think tank, which wanted to have a conversation about all the tough issues in this field we've been talking about. So we did. And I didn't see eye to eye with a lot of the people there. There were 29 of us. I haven't talked about it much, and we are able to talk about it. And there were people there who want to eliminate gender affirming care for youth. No care.
Well, they're doing that in some states already.
Exactly. And I've been very vocal about, I think that's the wrong approach for a lot of reasons, but certainly it's cruel to trans people who need this care. It is, as others say, life-saving for those for whom it is necessary. I count myself among them. I mean, I'm a pretty resilient person, but I was deeply troubled by, the conflict within me, the incongruence. Mm-hmm. And I had dysphoria, big time, huge dysphoria. So I know about these things, and being a female in society and how that is different than being a white male.
Yeah, there's no male privilege left for you.
No, exactly. So I traded, talk about cost. I traded being a hetero white male, affluent, hetero white male, well-educated, for being a transgender woman. And
life changed, huh?
Yeah. And I did not do it lightly. I mean, think about it, anybody. Like, why would you do this unless you absolutely had to live? So
absolutely.
So, when young people talk to me about their trauma, I say, yes, I imagine you do, and tell me, I want to hear about it. But they really don't know what it was like.
Yeah. What would have been like for them 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And how lucky they are.
How lucky they are.
It seems to me that a woman like you, who was given up so much to follow your truth and to support others and make sure that they also get to follow their truth and live their best life. What better legacy is there than that? And I think it's wonderful. I think you're incredible. I wish more people would read as much as I did about this and about you. And I am so grateful that you took the time to talk to me about this today. And I really do think you're going to write a book and all that stuff, but I may not be able to keep up with as much as it's going on. And I would like to have a conversation about the upcoming and what's happening now and what we're doing with these children again in the future, if you would oblige me to do it again.
It would be a great pleasure. And it's been very easy to talk with you, Nikki. You're very warm and engaged, and obviously very smart. And I like talking with you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
You're so welcome. And I'm so grateful. I'm going to stop this, but don't go anywhere because I want to say a proper goodbye. Okay.
Very good.